Hey guys, so I'm out here this morning. It's below zero, it's really cold, so I'll probably be making these quick, but I wanted to stop and just show you this little scene. I'm out chasing sunrises again because I have a little time this morning, and even though it's really cold, I wanted to get out and enjoy it. So I'm a little bit late on getting going, but the sun is still fairly low and we got some nice golden tones. I missed out on some really beautiful pinks and purples this morning, but what are you gonna do? Still dealing with this cold, so it's just not quite feeling up to getting up before daylight and getting out. So, but I wanted to get out a little bit now. But this scene here kind of caught my eye. We've got a nice little meadow, I guess you'd say, there, where there's a little bit of an opening. There's a little bit of a swamp down there, and the sun is coming across and just catching the tops of the popples back here that you can see over my shoulder. And I thought it was kind of a neat little scene with the snow and the popples. Now I'm out shooting right now. I've got my X-T1 with a 35mm lens. It was my go-to lens on this camera for the longest time, and I put it on today because I was talking last night a little bit with Brian Manier on Twitter and some direct messaging stuff, and we got to talking about lenses and how, you know, it's funny how after just a month or two you really fall in love with a new lens and you start using that specific focal length all the time, and all of a sudden it looks weird to shoot in other focal lengths. And so for me, for a long time, the 50mm equivalent, in this case 35mm on the Fuji crop sensor, that's just how I saw everything. It was, my eye just naturally noticed things in that perspective, that point of view. And I started trying to teach myself to shoot with the real wide angle 10-24 Fuji lens, and you've seen some of my work going up lately with that. And I fell into this almost a rut of sorts where I would shoot with my Fuji 10-24, and then I would shoot, if I needed something a little longer, with my Fuji 56mm, so it's the equivalent of like an 85mm. And that's where I've just been living, bouncing between those two. And so as a little challenge to myself this morning, I wanted to put the 35 back on one of my bodies and see if I could find, you know, a little inspiration by changing up a focal length a little bit. So that's what we're doing while we're out exploring. So let's hop back in the car. It's freezing cold out here. See what else we can find, and I'll take you along on that, and I will be back hopefully with some more images in just a few moments. So this was another scene I saw just a minute ago. Now the light's coming up, it's not quite as golden anymore. A little bit of faint golden highlights still, but we can take care of and add a little bit of color with a little bit of Photoshop trickery, or Lightroom, just adding a little bit of toning into there. But I really liked how the light over here, you've got this little swampy area right back here, and at the back of that you've got this mix of popples and pines, real thick, with some snow hanging on the pines, and you've got the light coming in over from this way and blasting down into that scene and just kind of highlighting the back corner of that little cove in there. And so it's an area that I wanted to try and make a picture. Now I'm still out with my 35mm, which is the equivalent of a 50mm on, you know, a full frame camera. And so I'm going to try and capture this, but the couple things I've got to watch out for is that unfortunately I've got some power lines right above me here, and so I can't get too far back because I don't want to get those power lines in the scene if I can help it. And the second thing is that by getting a little closer like that, I might not have quite enough of a wide angle look. So what I might end up doing is just stacking 2 images top to bottom, just to get enough of the bottom of the scene and enough of the top where it fades up into the sky with those popple trees. So I'm gonna go ahead and shoot that. We'll see what we get, and we'll keep exploring. Alright guys, so I think I found the last little scene this morning. The light's getting up pretty high and it's getting a little more hard than I like, and so I'm gonna try and make a picture here. And what I saw, you can't see it right now because I didn't want to shoot into the sun while I'm doing this, because I didn't want to, you know, have me completely silhouetted here. But behind me in the trees, there is a stretch here where we've got some big tall pines, and there's one single popple tree right here, and that popple tree is catching the light coming down. It's kind of coming at an angle across the scene like this, left to right behind me. And what's happening is that the popple tree's got a nice little highlight on it, and then behind it there's some pines that are hanging a little bit of snow, and it's kind of not misty, but kind of it's frosty, it's cold. And so the light is kind of filtering through some of these thick pine needles hanging off this tree. And so I'm going to see if I can make a composition there. Again, challenging myself with just the 35, and I think we'll get something cool. I may have to take a few steps out into the deep snow over there, because I'm just out driving back roads and hopping out taking pictures when I see stuff. But unfortunately in Minnesota right now, if you try and get out in the woods, you've got snow up over your knees, mid-thigh, and it's sub-zero temps, and it's just a good recipe for too much danger. It's not worth the risk in most situations. So there are some places you can get out and you can hike and you can do different things like that, which is cool. But for the type of stuff I like to do, where you're just kind of out exploring in the woods, taking walks, things like that, you really can't get out there right now. So you make do with what you have, you know, and that's driving back roads and wait until you see something and hop out and try and make the best compositions you can. The one hurdle, and I've made a lot of really good pictures that way over the years, but the one hurdle you have is that it seems like in a lot of places when you're close to the road, you don't get as much of the nice trees and woods. I mean, northern Minnesota here, we've got a lot of small popple shoots and brush and willow and alder and all of that stuff, and it gets thick in the woods everywhere, but especially by the edges of the roads, because they cut back the trees for power lines and things like that. And so a lot of times to get to those cool, you know, you'll see something like over here, like what I want to shoot today, but it's just off in there, because between you and that is a little layer of brush, if you will, because the road's been, you know, cut back, and they keep that cut back as best as they can. So we'll see what we can do. I'm gonna go see if I can make a photo or two in this situation, and then wrap this up. So you guys take care, and I will talk to you tomorrow.